Hello, YouTube. My name is Alan, and it's that time once again. Let's talk metal. This video is going to follow up on one I did recently where I picked my favorite German power metal album for each year through the 1990s. It was a fun list to put together. Had a lot of fun comments, good discussions in the chat afterwards. And yeah, folks agreed with a lot of the picks. Some folks had some other good ones that either I just forgot about or I'm not that familiar with. But there was one album I picked that generated a bit of discussion because several people had not ever heard the band, and that group is called Heaven's Gate. And since, yeah, several folks were unfamiliar with them, I figured, well, maybe that's the kind of band I ought to do a little spotlight video on. Heaven's Gate has some very good material, especially early in their career, but they never really got over the hoop, so to speak. I don't think that's the right saying, but yeah. Eh, they were known to folks who were really into the German power metal scene in the 90s, but they weren't a highly visible band. Some folks commented on the other video and were familiar with them, so yeah, bonus points to their true metal street cred for sure. But yeah, let's explore Heaven's Gate this episode. We'll walk through their discography. I'll play a few clips. I don't own all of their albums, so I'll be showing a few things on the phone. But yeah, we'll get through this just fine. All right. Members in Heaven's Gate actually trace their musical roots back to the 1970s. Several of the members had played in earlier projects. There was one in the late 70s called String Eyes, like a piece of string and eyes, string eyes. Sure, I don't know what that means in German, but that was the name they went with. Some members were in a sort of early to mid 80s band called Steel Tower. And the picture of Steel Tower on Metal Archives is absolutely priceless. Here we go. Germany's Steel Tower, featuring some future Heaven's Gate members. And I just got to say, if Aaron the Metal Theologian doesn't have this printed out and framed and hung above his fireplace, I will be sorely disappointed because that picture kind of screams Metal Theologian right there. All goof. Excuse me, it's a bit late and losing my voice a little bit. All joking around aside, Steel Tower got an album out in 1984 on Mausoleum Records, so yeah, they had some recorded output. Good for them. The band would go through another name change, switching from Steel Tower to Carrion, like, the dead meat carry-on, not like the bag you take on an airplane carry-on. And they would eventually settle on Heaven's Gate. Under the Heaven's Gate name, they would release their first album in 1989. And I tend to forget this came out in 89. To me, Heaven's Gate is a 90s band, so I always think it came out in 90, but it did squeak in before the end of the decade. And the debut album is called In Control. It was released on the No Remorse Records label. Now, that name has been used by a few different record labels. This was a German label that released stuff like some of the early Blind Guardian. Grinder was on No Remorse Records around that time. So they had a pretty, good roster of German bands. But I don't think they had particularly good distribution, at least overseas. And those things were not getting any attention in the US, for example. But yeah, this is the cover from the No Control album. I don't have an original copy of it, but it's included in a compilation called Boxed, and that's the version that I've got. So yeah, let's see what Heaven's Gate sounded like here on the debut album from '89. We'll start with a clip from a song called Turn It Down. And as usual with these clips, if the intro's, taking a little while to get going, I'll skip forward so you get a better idea of what the song actually sounds like. So here is Turn It Down from the Heaven's Gate debut LP.
To your heads with 100,000 turns.
right, you're getting a pretty good idea of what the song sounds like there. And a lot of tracks on In Control are in that same mold. There's several tracks that are kind of mid-paced, very sort of anthemic, raise your fist, chant along heavy metal tunes. Sounds like, the kind of thing. You got one of those tracks issued on pretty much every Judas Priest and probably every Running Wild album throughout the 1980s. The band's really good at the style. If there's a fault to the In Control album, it's probably that too many of the songs stick to that general style. When you have one or two songs like that on an album, works fine. When you start having multiple songs like that on an album, can make the entire album feel like it's paced the same way. There are some exceptions on In Control. For example, the excellent Tyrants is a much faster track. It's kind of the standout for a speedy example of German metal by Heaven's Gate. But overall, yeah, you've got solid performances. It's a good set of songs. They're probably just a little too samey for their own good, but a solid debut nonetheless. All right, so the band would head into the 90s and they would jump over to the Steamhammer label, which would have been more visibility for them compared to No Remorse. And in 1991, they released their sophomore effort called Living in Hysteria. Always liked this cover quite a bit, the fantasy art with the dragon, and I'm not sure if it's a small child or maybe some kind of, dwarf or something sweeping the bones away from the little rocky ledge there. Like the color scheme of it with the yellows and golds and the big blue dragon. It looks really good. And this album, they kind of, build off of what they did well with In Control, but they start leaning into their strengths. You've got more faster songs, and the songs are more varied. You've got, again, some real speedsters. You've got some of those anthemic tracks again. You've got a really good production. Everything is really bright and clear on this one. Yeah, just an incredibly well-rounded album. It kind of just pushes all the buttons that you want out of a German power metal record from the early 90s. We'll check out clips of a couple of tracks here to hear some examples. Let's start with one of the real speedy ones. This is called Flashes. Yeah, so as you hear, they really can open it up and let it roll when they want to, and Flashes is a fantastic example of that. Let's also check out a clip of the title track, Livin' in Hysteria. I'll play a little bit of the beginning of this song, but then I'm also going to jump forward and play a middle portion of the song because it's going to point out something important about the band's development. So here, let's start with the beginning of Livin' in Hysteria. All right. So yeah, fantastic sing-along song, good energy, quick pace to it. Great track. Let's jump forward in it a little bit and check out a clip from the middle where they do something a little different. See if I can find it here easily. All right, so yeah, there's that, funny little kind of breakdown section in the bridge of the song. It works fine. I actually like it, but yeah, it's got like this kind of, they just kind of give you this, little drum break, and then there's this chorus that's singing the main refrain from the chorus. Yeah, and then they launch right back into the song. So it works kind of fun, but it's the kind of quirky little addition to a track that Heaven's Gate would start doing more and more as their career went on. There's not many examples of it here on Living in Hysteria, the album. Most of it's just, straightforward German power metal goodness. But it's worth noting because they will do more and more of that on some of the albums to come. So yeah, Live in Hysteria, fantastic album. I think hopefully you're starting to see and hear why it was my favorite German power metal album from 91. All right, around this time, the band also put out some EPs. Some of them had like non-LP tracks, cover tracks, typical stuff, but some of the unreleased material is pretty good. Those are hard to get, of course. They were never distributed very widely, but they were collected in a box set put out in 1998, which was called Boxed. Truth in advertising, at least. What can I say? Uh, the Boxed set included the In Control album, really nice since it had been hard to find. But then you also get the Open the Gate and Watch EP that came out around this time, the More Hysteria EP from around this time, a couple of bonus tracks, and it also includes an EP released in 1997. Again, the box coming out in 1998. We'll get to that 1997 EP in a little bit. But after the success of Living in Hysteria, the band came right back in 1992, just a year later, and released their third album. This one had the somewhat unusual title of Hell for Sale. There's an exclamation point at the end, so it's like Hell for Sale. Um, it's an odd title to start with, and I don't know why it needed an exclamation point at the end, but that's the thing they did. Like the cover art on it quite a bit. I don't think I've ever had a physical copy of this one. If I did, it's been so long ago I forgot that I even owned it. But yeah, cool cover. Music on this one sees the band starting to do a little bit more of that quirky stuff. And I'm just going to refer to it as the quirky stuff because I've never quite known how to characterize it. It's not like the band is trying to be exceptionally arty by putting these different little snippets into songs. And they're not trying to do something that's really avant-garde or out there. And they're not really, trying to do anything progressive with the song structures either. It's just that, yeah, they have a tendency to put these little quirky tidbits in the songs more and more often. And you start to hear more of it on Hell for Sale. The album still has some really strong, straightforward German power speed metal on it. Opener Under Fire is a great track. He's the Man's pretty good overall, although it's got one of those quirky little sections in it, kind of like Living in Hysteria did. I'm going to play a clip from one of their best anthems ever, and it's featured on Hell for Sale. It's a song called Rising Sun, and pretty obvious tribute to their fan base in Japan. Let's check it out here. So yeah, fantastic track there. Sounds like the best material from Living in Hysteria. Um, but not all the songs play out that way. An example of something that's a little odd here. You have two songs back to back called Stars and Stripes, which is just an instrumental interlude, to be fair, but it leads into a track called America. It's like, what's with all the US love here? Don't think you had much of a dedicated fan base in the States around 92. Not for this style of music, sorry. We weren't into this stuff like Japan was. The America song, again, shows them sort of, starting to fiddle around more outside the bounds of traditional German power metal. Let's check out a clip. You'll be able to hear what I'm talking about pretty quickly. All right, as you can probably imagine, I tend to skip that song when I play Hell for Sale. Again, going in a very different direction there, and just incorporating, odd little quirky things into the songs. I think it's later in this particular song they have a audio clip from when George Bush was doing like the oath of office and being sworn in as president. Maybe it's on one of the later tracks, but still, it's just like, why is that there? It doesn't really fit. Again, maybe they're trying to be goofy, but usually when German heavy metal bands are goofing off, it's pretty blatant that they're doing it. It doesn't necessarily feel like that's what they're trying to do with these quirky little tidbits. I'm not really sure what to make of them. The end result is that Hell for Sale is kind of a mixed bag. There's some fantastic tracks on it. There's also some tracks that you can really do without and just skip over a lot of the time. All right. They released that in 92. Moving into 93, you got a live album, which was called Live for Sale. Again, with the exclamation point, and they're going to stick to that for sale motif at least one more time. The Live for Sale album is a really good live set. It includes all the really strong tracks from the first three albums, good performances. Um, they avoid most of the sort of oddball tracks. I'm pretty sure America is not on the track list for the live outing. So yeah, cool chance to hear songs from throughout all three of the band's first albums. Like the live album quite a bit. After the live album, the band kind of went quiet for a little bit. I think it's around 95, they had one of their only lineup changes. I believe the bass player left and had to be replaced. But I think the band was also reportedly building their own recording studio around this time. And this would tie into something else that was going on with one of the members, guitarist Sasha Paeth, uh, ended up in a career where he did a lot of mixing, engineering studio work for tons of other bands, and he had already been doing some of that by this time. So the fact that they're kind of, starting to dabble more in the recording side of things, building their own studio, taking more time away from, just actually writing and recording their own music, all kind of fits together with what happened in terms of their careers. But they did come back in 96. So you had a 4 year gap between studio albums. And in 96, they released their fourth studio album, which was called Planet E, as in Earth, yes. Um, let's dial up a picture of this one because I've never owned this album. I'm not sure I've even ever seen a copy of this album in real life. Um, Still on Steamhammer. Here's the Planet E album. Um, I've heard this one a couple of times. It's never made a particularly strong impression. No, the few folks that were paying attention to this kind of thing in the late 90s, they were pretty off Heaven's Gate when this came out. They'd already been thrown for a little bit of a loop with the oddness on Hell for Sale. And the fact that, yeah, they wait several years and you got an album that, to a lot of people sounded just kind of plain, maybe a tad boring. And I'm not saying it's a bad album, but it does feel like, they're getting further and further away from their, German power metal sound. That they're dabbling more and more with just, rock music, adding in some different little things here and there. And it's just, yeah, it's okay. But if you're a fan of German power metal and you're wanting to hear German power metal, Planet E is probably not going to be the album that you reach for very often. Right. Um, but if you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. So they followed that up in 97 with another EP called In the Mood. And this is the second disc that comes in the boxed set I showed earlier. Disc one, fantastic. It's got the In Control album and those other cool early 90s EPs. The second disc is just the In the Mood EP, which has 6 songs on it, and I'm pretty sure all of these are re-recordings of songs from earlier in their catalog done acoustic style. Which, you're looking at the band photos and cover and such, and you kind of know right away something's up here. And yeah, this is basically an acoustic outing. How acoustic can it be, you ask? Well, let's go and check out a clip of the song Planet Earth, this being the version from the EP.
Standing on the shore, the wind is blowing fast with power. Like a fortress wall, the rain keeps smashing, pouring down. Feeling all alone and no one there to keep me warm. The sun has turned into a black and frozen piece of coal. In this poison gas, no creature even can survive. Feeling all the
Okay, that's really all that's going to happen across all of these songs. It's all acoustic guitar, singing, and bongos. Don't believe me? I'll play one more clip from one more song. But remember, you asked for it. Here's a clip from Noah's Dream, which I think is also from the Planet E album. Let's just go ahead and call that right there. It's yes, it's an EP. You can say it's just, a sort of, one-off, fun-off, but at the same time, I just don't know who the target audience for this is. Fans of the band's work up to this point, unless they're just in it for a laugh, but do you really want to buy this EP just to guffaw at it? And it's not going to attract new fans unless there was some kind of acoustic bongo craze going on in Germany in the late 1990s that I'm just unaware of. Which, hey, maybe there was. Late 90s German pop culture, not my strong suit. So maybe they were playing to some kind of local fad. I don't know. I have no idea what to make of this EP. It came with the box set. I've played it once or twice, and I will probably never play it again. It's just there. So yeah, it very much kind of to me highlights the fact that the band was not in a metal frame of mind much anymore. That the metal aspect was kind of taking the back seat to just trying out and doing other things, which is okay. Lots of bands grow, change over time, switch styles. That's okay. It's just hard for me to figure out what was the point in releasing this EP. It's not going to go over well with your established fans, the ones that aren't already jumping ship, and it's not going to win them back, and it's not going to attract you new fans either. But the band wasn't done. They did release one more album in 1999. So again, squeaked in one more album before the end of the decade. And that album was called Menergy. Yeah, the title, you're probably already suspecting what I will confirm. Another kind of generic picture of Earth. They definitely had sort of an Earth thing going on here late in their career. And the album title just down here in these like red blocks, which does nothing. Don't even have the band's logo or title anywhere on the cover. That's it. Menergy. The deal with Menergy is, again, some of the songs are okay. They're feels like they're a long, long way from where they were at in the early 90s, though. But, some of the individual songs are all right. The problem you run into on Menergy is that there are 23 songs on this. I crap you not. This is the track list for Menergy. It's only like a 43-minute album. Uh, Oh, wait, sorry. Underestimating. 51 minutes. So 51-minute album, but still with 23 tracks. Obviously, most of these are just little interludes jammed in between the real songs. So the real songs are spaced out with all these little interludes in between. And at least some of the interludes are very annoying. For example, the one that starts the album is a sound of a phone ringing over and over with a like you know oh, what do you call them before we had voicemail? Answering machines. Yes. Like an answering machine recording saying, the number you are trying to reach has been disconnected, is out of service. With the phone constantly ringing in the background. The phone, while they keep saying the number that you were trying to reach has been disconnected. Ring, ring, ring. It's really irritating. I mean, it only lasts for 49 seconds. And by the end of the 49 seconds, I'm kind of ready to, just take the album and throw it out the window. It's really annoying. And I'm speaking metaphorically because I never have owned a copy of Menergy, and yeah, I don't think I'll be picking this one up anytime soon. Once again, the clips, they're not funny. They don't feel like they're trying to be arty. They're don't really feel like they're trying to be especially progressive either. So I'm just not really sure what was going on, what the mentality was for including this kind of stuff. But, the band was doing their own thing and can't take that away from them. But 99 was the end of the line for Heaven's Gate. Whether Steamhammer just had enough of this kind of tomfoolery or the band felt like, yeah, we've run our course. Again, we're just kind of, experimenting and, trying stuff out here. We're not really getting a cohesive album so much. This would be the last studio material from Heaven's Gate. Some other compilations have been put out. If you're interested in checking out the band and want to hear more, there was a compilation, for example, in 2015 called Best for Sale. Once again with the exclamation point. And it does feature some songs from all of the band's albums. So it does give you a really good career perspective of everything they did from back in the In Control days all the way up through the Menergy material. And that is Heaven's Gate. Now, as I said, Sasha Paeth went on to an extraordinary career working in the studio with more bands than you could possibly name. If you haven't ever done so, look at the list of contributions he's done on his Metal Archives page. The list just keeps going. It's pretty insane. So he's had a really good career working in the studio. Some of the other members have had good careers doing session work, and they've been, highly in demand and done lots of contributions to other musical projects as studio musicians. So yeah, Heaven's Gate never became a household name. They're never going to be considered maybe one of the top three German power metal bands of all time, but they did release some really cool stuff later in their career. They kind of strayed away from that formula and did their own thing, whatever that was. But several of the members did go on and still have good careers in the music business, nevertheless. And that is going to do it for this video. So now let's talk metal in the comments down below. What do you think of Heaven's Gate? The early stuff is probably what's going to be most interesting to some folks. Maybe some of you dig that later odd stuff, like the funkiness of the song Atomic from the Hell for Sale album. I'm sorry, I can't quit doing it. There is an exclamation point. I guess I'm supposed to say it that way. But yeah, if you like the later stuff, by all means, that's cool. I've got no problem with it. It's just not quite for me. But let me know what you think of the band in the comments down below. And what are some other, sort of under the radar German power metal bands from that era? We all know the Blind Guardians and the Gamma Rays, and we know the other big power metal bands that came to dominate later in the 90s. And some of the Italian bands like Rhapsody, bands from other places like Stradivarius. But there were these other smaller acts like Heaven's Gate who put out some really, really good stuff and just get a bit overlooked when discussing these topics. So if you know one of those other sort of hidden gem bands, by all means, mention it in the comments down below so folks can check it out. I highly encourage everybody to check out more of Heaven's Gate. And just be mindful of which albums you pick because you will get some different styles depending on which one you choose. All right, that will do it. So until next time, everybody take care. And as always, keep banging your head.